Hello everyone, Chief Canuck here, and it appears 343 Industries has apologized for Halo 5's story. Yep, you heard me. It's not the most ideal apology either. I'm not even sure if it really is supposed to be an apology, but it doesn't really feel like one. But I'll let you decide that for yourselves. It is, to my knowledge, the very first public admission about Halo 5's story faults. In a recent interview with Game TM magazine, Frank O'Connor and Kiki Wolfkill were asked the following. How do you feel the perception of 343 has changed over the years? Frank O'Connor replied, and in part of his answer he said this about Halo 5's story in particular. We took some digs for storytelling in Halo 5, but they were absolutely merited. We very much realized that people wanted Master Chief's story of Halo 5. We definitely marketed it in a way that we hoped was going to bring surprise. But for some fans, and certainly fans of Master Chief, it was a huge disappointment because they wanted more Chief. They loved Blue Team, they liked Osiris, but they wanted Chief. And that has been a big learning. Chief we tend to think of as a kind of vessel for your adventure, rather than necessarily this major character in the universe. He's really just your entry into the universe, but people have become attached to him over the last 15 years and they've started to sort of fill in the gaps that the character deliberately has for gameplay reasons with a genuine emotional attachment. We certainly underestimated that with Halo 5. This idea and answer seeped into another question when they were asked, do you feel Master Chief is as relevant today as he was 10 years ago? Frank O'Connor said, he's really become more and more relevant. I think certainly in Halo Combat Evolved he was deliberately almost an empty suit. He's just this fantastic way to enter somebody in the middle of a conflict. The effect that character has on his surroundings and the fate of the galaxy has had a resonant effect on fans over the years. It wasn't that surprising to me, but the volume of give us more Chief at the end of Halo 5 was significant, and so I think if anything, really slightly more important now than he has ever been, certainly to our franchise. Instead of focusing on bringing new characters into the world and expanding the playable characters, we've sort of shifted the focus a little bit to making the world a little bit more realistic and compelling, and I would say more fun for players who get to inhabit the Chief in the future. Pretty much as they have demanded. There's always a call and response element of shipping a game. You have to ship improvements, you have to ship tweaks, and you have to ship changes, and sometimes you have to walk some of those back. Doubling down on the Master Chief story and the amount of focus on him was probably the easiest learning from Halo 5. That was a really simple thing to absorb and embrace. So two good things to immediately draw from this is that they've acknowledged some of the story's shortcomings in Halo 5, and that they'll be doubling down on the Master Chief as a focus moving forward. This is great to hear, but the rest of the statement hasn't really sat well with fans, and it didn't sit well with me either, so let's take a look at it here. First of all, the marketing was great, but never translated into the game. Yes, many trailers and advertisements for Halo games are not necessarily canon and usually don't even show up at all in games. But not until Halo 5 did the trailers actually convey a plot point. The plot point that Chief is a traitor, and he's going to be hunted down by Locke and his team. A plot point they so daringly called the greatest hunt in gaming history. Not to mention there was this Hunt the Truth podcast, which was really good, but it was supposed to help lead us and lead into Halo 5, and there was no payoff in the game for that whatsoever. The big thing is that the hunt barely happened. When Locke finally caught up the Chief, they had their minor disagreement in fisticuffs, but then Fireteam Osiris basically said, there must be something else going on, and they just followed Blue Team. Not really the, quote, greatest hunt in gaming history. There was no hunt. It was more of a, hey, you, wait up. Oh shit, there must be something important as he's not listening and they've just ran off. Let's go follow them. Frankie, as you put, that's a surprise, but that's definitely not a surprise fans want. A surprise should be good. Misleading fans is not a good surprise. A good surprise is adding something extra or a minor twist, but still staying true to an idea that was being advertised, not by flipping the entire script immediately when players begin playing the game. Now, whoever greenlit the marketing when it barely translated into the game should be questioned. If the game's development did undergo a major change and it was too late to change the already made marketing plans, then perhaps they should have quickly cut the advertisements differently or dub it over with a different message, because they're all wearing helmets. It's pretty easy to get voice lines back out there. It's amazing how simple edits can make trailers better and convey a completely different message. There's a great example of this out there. There was a fan recut of the recent Ghostbusters trailer for that flop of a movie, but that trailer, the fan recut, had a better reception than the official one for the movie. Next, yes, it was an absolutely huge disappointment in the lack of Chief and Blue Team missions. Only 3 missions? That was only 20% of the campaign, even if. The rest were lackluster goose chases with Fireteam Osiris, where only 2 characters are arguably decent, Buck and Vale. Tanaka was basically a nobody in the shadows, and Locke's lines were boring and made the character lame. Just like Halo Nightfall, which was a super cliche story, and the most interesting character and one that stole the show, or at least what little show there was Aiken, not Locke. If Halo 5 Guardians was advertised as not part of the mainline Halo games, drop the number, then I'd be okay with it. But as fans, it's safe to expect that Chief is the focus, or at least equally shares the spotlight, a la Halo 2, in a numbered Halo title. It's Halo 5 for f***'s sakes. As fans, it's more than reasonable to expect the focus to be on the Master Chief, but also have it equally shared the spotlight with Fireteam Osiris, just like Halo 2 did with the Arbiter. Granted, there were websites like Halo2Sucks.com, but I don't think Halo 2's story has been criticized as much as Halo 5's. That's not to say 343 should not introduce and develop new characters. This is where I also disagree with you, Frankie. They just need to be better and actually developed, or actually developed through a game. We jumped into Halo 5 with Chief suddenly back with Blue Team. Those who read the books and comics were ready for this, but those who just play the games probably had a what the f*** moment. For years the games conveyed that he was the last living Spartan 2, and the games never once corrected that idea that was set in from the beginning. So suddenly, he's back with his former team of Spartan 2s, and players are thrown into an already existing dynamic thanks to the extended lore, and we had to figure that all out in 3 missions? That's not enough. Then there's Fireteam Osiris. Locke had a lousy introduction in Halo Nightfall, Vale had her novel, Tanaka had her comic, and Buck, well, he's definitely a fan favorite. A lot of people know him, and a lot of people like him. To get my point across and speed things up a little bit here, players were thrusted into this story with arguably a bunch of questions that never got answered in the game. It's totally fine to leave some things a mystery for a better story payoff later on, but there was so much that was a mystery in Halo 5 that I feel the required reading and homework for the game is the most in the series. Now, Halo 4 arguably had a lot of lore, the most we had seen at the time in the series, but it wasn't necessarily crucial for the players to 100% know it beforehand. The overarching story was strong enough to stand on its own without having to read the novels or study the terminals. I feel if you don't change any of Halo 5's missions, you needed to put something in the beginning, like, here's what you missed last season on before the game started. Bring us up to speed on Chief and Blue Team, and introduce Fireteam Osiris. It didn't need to be extremely detailed, or better yet, have us play missions that bring us up to speed. But instead we jumped into the game as the relatively new team Fireteam Osiris and killed Jul 'Mdana like he was nobody. So I will disagree with Frankie there that Fireteam Osiris was liked. I feel it's generally accepted that the team's lines, development, and plot was weak. There's some serious voice talent behind Osiris. It just needs to be better utilized. I do agree with the statement that Chief was a vessel for the adventure and to some degree not necessarily a major character in the universe. That is and was true for the first 3 games. The first 3 games where he had barely any lines and was robotic in nature. This allowed players to become the Chief and fill in the gaps as they played. However, with Halo 4, that completely changed. Your goal, 343's goal, was to make him human, personable, and explore the feelings that Chief had. Something that has never been explored upon in the games before, and I generally feel Halo 4's story was very strong because of that. Granted, many got a love story vibe that put them off, which I personally didn't get, but I understand that argument. However, Chief had a voice in that game and experienced a major loss. It's a character element fans can connect, relate, and become attached to, as opposed to players filling the emotionless void in Chief's helmet that the previous games allowed and arguably were built for. So that vessel excuse, thrown out the window. Because you guys threw it out the window yourselves. You guys did that in your previous game. So I'm not sure how you can, quote, underestimate that when the idea was created by you guys. So those were Frank's statements about Halo 5's story and why it was criticized, and rightfully so. He owned up to it on behalf of 343, but in the most odd way possible. It almost seems like he or they forgot they made Halo 4. I do have to say, it is great that the focus is going to be moving back to Chief. Save other focuses for side Halo games, not the mainline ones. I would love for Halo 6's story quality to be at least on par with Halo 4, and perhaps structured similarly. Have lore there for those who can recognize it, don't require it, have terminals there for those who want to dive deeper, but have a story plot that's strong enough without prior knowledge outside of the games so that it can stand on its own. Bonnie Ross even reiterated a similar sentiment during and after her presentation at DICE earlier this year. She said she wanted to move to a simpler story, which she later clarified on Twitter that she loved the story in Halo 4 and that there is a balance. I agree, balance is key. Just before I finished making this video, 343 had released a comment on the matter in the latest Halo community update. Frank's comments about lessons learned from Halo 5's campaign seem to have parts of the community in a bit of an uproar. First, it's important to note that there's a lot of speculation and assumptions being made out there. The next major Halo game hasn't even been announced, let alone any details about what the story may entail. Rest assured that while the studio has received feedback that players wanted to see more of Master Chief in Halo 5, that's far from the only learnings the team has taken to heart. We are absolutely aware of the sentiment around the disconnects between the game's marketing versus what transpired in the game, as well as issues such as the lack of split-screen functionality, to name a few examples, and are always striving to learn and improve going forward. We'll have plenty more to say when the time is right. After reading this further statement on Halo Community Update, I feel a little bit better, obviously because they actually mentioned the difference between the marketing and what transpired in game. They acknowledge that. They mentioned split screen, and always, they can't always divulge everything that they've learned moving forward because that will spoil announcements for games moving forward. But it's nice to have this a little bit of a clarification. I guess maybe Frank O'Connor wasn't really entirely prepared for these questions. I know personally I would suck at giving an interview. It takes me forever to write a script like this, and also not to mention say it without stuttering, because I have that issue. It takes me forever to edit things, and I'm freeballing this right now, and you probably notice a bit of a difference between what I just read and what I'm saying now. So I appreciate the kind of update and clarification, but it just seemed rather odd what Frank said, and I hope maybe he kind of reflects upon that. I don't mean to be this, like, I'm calling you out, Frank O'Connor. It's just kind of, what the heck did you forget about Halo 4 and all that development and storytelling? It's odd. Anyways, what do you guys think about Frank O'Connor's statements, the clarification, and what are your opinions on Halo 5's story, especially compared to the other games? Let me know in the comments down below. I look forward to reading them. My name's Chief Canuck. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys next time.